Welcome back to the bench. So, where we left off last time, I was in a huge rush. We were going to the range in like 15 minutes. I had to load those, and it is incredible how much time it takes to video this. It's incredible. Slows me way down, so I just had to cut it. Figured I'd give you a recap. Um, so yeah, basically, um, shut off those 12. Results look very, very good. Um, as you can see, this is the results. So each number next to each hole corresponds with the number of the ladder test. So 1, if you refer back to your notes, is 62 grains of hybrid 100, and then 12 is 67 and a half. So we got velocities ranging from, let's see, 62 grains was 2,858, and 67.5 was 3,127 feet per second. So kind of straddling that 3,000 foot mark. But yeah, I'd say overall these look pretty good. If you look at it, we were talking about accuracy nodes. So 1 and 2 aren't that close, but 2, 3 are quite close. 3 and 4 are kind of close. So between 2 and 4 would probably be 1, maybe even 5. Between 2 and 5, 5 and 6 aren't that close. 6 and 7 are close, but 5 and 6 aren't. So might be able to find something in 6 and 7, 7 and 8, 8 and 9, 9, 10, somewhat 11 and 12 are also quite close. So I mean, I am only human. I could have misplaced one of those shots. I think that would be the high note right in there. I think that 11 should be a little bit closer. Shooting this many shots with a 300 short, it gets quite fatiguing. So by the end of the 12 shot string, like you're sore and you're tired. So with reasonable confidence, I would say that 2 to 4 would be your low node, and 9 to 12 would probably be your high node. I mean, she's 10 and 12 are just one on top of each other, but they're not in order, so it doesn't matter. So I think what we're going to do from here is load a 3 shot. Pick one from each node and load a 3 shot group in each. So I'll probably pick the 9 and 10. I mean, this is just at first glance. So 9 and 10 is 66 and 66 and a half. So I'd probably take 66 and a half and load 3. And then 2 and 4, I'd probably load 3 at number 3, which was 63 grains, and try that. But then also what's interesting is if you look at this, these were the foulers I shot out of a clean bore just to get a little bit of fouling in there. And you can see this is load 1. And like that is incredible. Obviously we don't care about the proximity to the dot. All I'm looking for is precision, not accuracy. So if you look at those two, they are on top of each other. And that's really hard to ignore out of a cold clean bore. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to load 3 at number 1 as well. So we'll load 3 at 62, 3 at 63, and 3 at 66 and a half will probably be my next 9-round string for that. But honestly, this is really showing quite a bit of promise. Another thing to look out for while you're doing these kind of ladder tests is for pressure signs. So after each, obviously start on the lowest charge weight and move your way up incrementally. So this is one. Just as a side note, this is the way I always lay out my loading block. This is always the first round I shoot, and this one's always the last. So I'll shoot left to right in the first row, left to right in the second row, left to right in the third row, like this. And that way I always know they're in order. So if I weight sort these brass, this is always the lightest. This is always the heaviest. This is the lightest weight, lightest charge, should be the lowest pressure. So if I go through and I see one, with pressure signs, I know that each one incrementally is going to have slightly higher pressure because it's a smaller. Lost my train of thought. Because weight indicates brass wall thickness. And if the brass wall is thicker, that means it's got a less internal volume, meaning smaller volume more pressure. So each one incrementally is going to have more pressure when their weight's sorted. So I just keep that all the time. This is always the first one I look at, always the first one I shoot, first one I load, first, like, I'll take them out of here and put them in my box the exact same way. Like they're always in order. So yeah, each one you look at the pressure signs, and I mean I don't see any. Look for case head separation, flattening of the primer cratering, any gas blow by here, or anything like that. The velocities, I don't see any drastic pressure spikes or drops. I mean, it's fairly consistent climb all the way. Yeah. So, okay, so what happened last video? Last video was cut short. I was super tight on time, and it just kills you, the amount of time it takes to make these videos. The issue I was having is finding the seating depth with the method that I was going to use, because I don't have a dummy gauge or an overall length gauge from Hornady, or from any other manufacturer for that matter. So I made one error and one realization. So the error that I made is when I was pushing the bolt in with the cartridge in there, it wasn't clasped over the ejector. So I was essentially pushing it in like that, which obviously isn't an accurate reading. It actually has to be clipped in like that. And I wasn't doing that. I was just pushing it in like that initially. So I realized that, but then I realized that even without a bullet in it, I just took a resized case and put it in. It's still tight. And I remember that about this gun, is it has a tight chamber. And I'm going to look more into that, but what I'm thinking is that, okay, this is a Seiko, this isn't a cheap gun. I'm guessing that this chamber is cut to minimum SAAMI spec, and SAAMI stands for Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institution or something like that, but it's SAAMI.org anyways for the chamber drawings. I'm guessing that this is cut to minimum SAAMI spec, and if this die resizes to SAAMI spec, or maybe just a little bit bigger, or somewhere in there, it's going to have some resistance. I think they're too tight. If this is minimum spec, this resizes to minimum spec, obviously, so that it fits in every chamber. They're not going to go in easily. So that's my guess as to what is happening. But with that, if it's tight going into the chamber with this method, the bolt is never going to fall closed, because there's that resistance backwards on the lugs. It has to free fall. So with my 6.5, it's fine. That works just fine. I've used this method and I find it extremely accurate. With my 6.5, I have a full-length competition resizing die, so it probably reduces it to SAAMI spec, or maybe even a little bit smaller. But you have to have that, just a little bit of clearance no matter what, or it's not going to fit. And for my 6.5, like, that's like barely SAAMI spec, like it is. So my guess is a tight chamber. Dies are set to minimum spec, chambers minimum spec, and that's why it's tight, because even these resized brass, I'll show you, it doesn't close nice. Like, that's pretty stiff, like, in fact really stiff, so they never really go in nice. It's just a tight fit. So that's why I couldn't get the depth that way. So what I ended up doing is just going off the magazine and just bumping it back until it just fit inside the magazine. So I have maybe 10 to 15 thou from the me-plat of the bullet to the front of the magazine. Like, they just feed in nice. Like, it's just short enough so that they'll still feed in, and I can still load 3 while I'm hunting. So that's kind of the recap as to where we're at. We're gonna load up another 9 and hopefully shoot them off maybe tomorrow, probably Sunday, and then I want to get one more, if I need it, one more round of shooting in on Monday, because it's a holiday Monday. So just a couple notes here while we're looking at the video. You'll note the rear bag. I'm not actually using the rear bag really like. I kind of have the rifle propped on it, but then I pick it up off the bag and put it on my shoulder. I have my weak hand holding the fore end. Normally I don't. Normally I hold the rear bag and squeeze the bunny ears type deal. But on an ultralight, heavy recoiling rifle like this, you pretty well gotta hold the fore end. You gotta control the recoil. Um, and I mean, hey, I think I'm doing a pretty darn good job of driving the rifle through recoil. You know what I'm saying? One thing you might know too, I screwed that 2x6 to the top of the bench there. And what that's for is to push against with my bipod. It's for preloading the bipod. And that's something that's pretty key whenever you shoot off a bipod, whether it be on a bench or prone. You always got to load that bipod, and by pushing forward a little bit on the bipod, you can see the legs flash back and forth a little bit. It gives some suspension to the legs and allows the rifle to move backwards in a completely straight line. Whereas if you just have the legs just straight, the tendency is going to be to hop a little more. So you can see a little bit of a hop. So the rifle does hop a little bit on me here, not too bad. Like I say, I'm not super used to shooting ultralight magnums, so guys that are can probably get it just beautifully recoiling, keep it on the bench at all times. I'm pretty happy with this. It barely comes off the bench at all. I'm pretty happy with that overall. So one more thing that definitely didn't hurt the performance of this gun is I actually adjusted the trigger. This thing had a 4-pound 2-ounce trigger, which is pretty heavy for any kind of precision work. It's okay for hunting, but it's not what I'm used to, so I backed it off, and it's quite easy. I'm just gonna cut back here to the bench for a second. If you pop out the magazine, there's one set screw. It's a little bit easier if you take the stock off, but it's just one Allen key. And see if you can kind of sort of see. Probably not. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you can kind of see. It's this hole right here. That's your trigger adjustment for future reference. So all I gotta do is back that off. So I backed it off from 4 pounds 2 ounces to 1 pound 10 ounces. So like a pound and 3/4 ish. And that's a little bit more comfortable for me. It's the way I like to shoot. Easy to set back if you want it there. Can easily set it back to where it was.